Laura, get us started here. How do you think about this topic of really value measurement and especially with respect to completions and what a role that has played in the past?
So for me, that is what we've got to really evolve. It's definitely going to evolve because if it doesn't, it will go from very static into just staying static. So that's really what I want to cover today.
Awesome. And Mark, give us a quick intro into your topic, and then we'll let Laura go into it more deeply.
Yeah, sure. I just think about completions versus consumption, right? It's more important about what you're getting out of it than whether or not you actually click the button, right? We talked about the completed button at the end. It's the journey that you're going along, and what are you learning from that, and what can we learn from how people learn?
Yeah. Okay. Love that. Okay. Well, Laura, let's walk through your bit.
All right, I'm going to stand up. I'm a walker, and if apologize for the notes, but I am expecting. I was saying to the guys that I'm genuinely concerned that baby brain will kick in and I will forget everything. So it's for this purpose only. So hi everyone, I'm Laura Jones here at General Motors, and just to kick us off. We are General Motors. Many of you may have heard of us, 100-plus-year-old company, but we're actually going through one of the largest transformations in probably the last 100 years, going from an automaker to a platform innovator, and that is massive. What you see here on the screen is our vision. We want to see a world, we want to contribute to a world of zero crashes, zero emissions, and zero congestion. But for me, the little sentence at the bottom, which is our people are the driving force behind making this a reality, is the plus, plus, plus. People are the biggest asset of your company. They are of mine, and we as HR professionals owe it to them to ensure that they believe that every single minute of the day with the products and solutions that we provide. And so that really takes us into, really where we are, again, as HR professionals, especially when we think about learning. So to set the quick stage on the next slide, I have half of my job is global talent at General Motors, which is everything onboarding to offboarding from a process solution standpoint. When we think about learning, we're actually very decentralized. Is that a huge opportunity for us? Yep, something that we are definitely going to be looking at. But when the topic really came in on learning completions, when Colin and Holly and Sarah and everyone presented it to me, it was very, very thought-provoking. And this is my opportunity at trying to be creative, and I didn't use a car analogy here. But when we were thinking about that topic, course completions, should it be extinct? Or is it turning into something like a chameleon, where maybe it's a little bit hiding? And what is the effect of that? TBD. And so it really, really got us thinking there, and what could be a good or a bad thing. What I can tell you right now is we are talking about completions less. We're really not looking at them as the only way to define success for a program, and particularly in the case study, I'll highlight that. But what I did want to share beforehand is a story, because for me, this story highlights why, at a very minimum, the narrative on course completions has to change. So in my field assignment role, I was sitting there with an employee and they were done. They were really disheartened because they didn't get the promotion that they were looking for. And as a part of that conversation, they presented me with, Laura, look at all of these courses I took. Look at all of this work I've done. And I was like, okay, well, what was your why? What did those courses do to help you better yourself in your current role? What were those courses for as you think about preparing for your next role? And they had no answer. To them, when they were thinking about course completions, the amount of hours and the amount of courses that they had taken was an indicator that they were ready for that next level. And for me, therein lies the problem. I think we can all agree here, learning is nothing unless you do something with it. And that, for me, really sets the stage for, okay, we have to change the narrative as it relates to course completions. So next slide, please. So our journey, we are on a journey, I'm sure all of you are. If I was here to deliver a silver bullet or you were hoping for a silver bullet, I'm really sorry, I haven't got one. But what I want to take you on is a little bit of our journey from, some of the current state to that future state. And the case study in the middle, I would say, is our current example of where we have our eye on the future state more than ever. Again, are we perfect? Absolutely not. But we do have our eye on the prize. But before I get there, on that left-hand side, and I'd appreciate any nods or hand raises if any of these sentences resonate with you. When you think about learning, or when you talk about learning, it really focuses on the formal learning. Courses, courses, courses. The second one is that learning is very event-based. Maybe a function has a week's learning course, or people go off-site, or it's, spend one day a week doing your learning, seeing some nods there through your organizations. The next one is each function, maybe within your company, uses its own competency and skills model from which they then build their course content. So it's very relevant for their function, but does it apply to the whole company? And then that final one is when they think about their talent, they put them as, I'm an engineering talent first, company talent second. Finance talent first, company talent second. Any of those sentences feel familiar? Yep, seeing some nods there. So really from that standpoint, when I talk about the case study in the middle, the one word phrase that I'd like for everyone to take away is connected ecosystem. That's the one word. I'll talk a lot, but if you take nothing away, the top line item is connected ecosystem. So at GM, we have nearly 10,000 people leaders. It's a considerable amount of individuals. And with this amazing population, historically, we could talk about everything that we did with them in that left-hand side of the box. In addition, I could tell you how much all the courses cost, how many people had gone through all of these courses, and how much of my budget that was going to take. But could I tell you if they were an effective leader? No, I couldn't. And therein lies the problem and the evolution that we went through. I'll be very honest, did we do it in a very beautiful, project managed way? Nope, we really evolved as a function and as a company. But where I was really lucky is that under my purview, I have all of these different facets. And so as a team working together, that connected ecosystem really started to work. So what did we do? The first thing is we were at the time conducting leadership development assessments with our partner Egon Zehnder. And they have 9 competencies of which, the leaders and the senior leaders were really buying into. It was, yeah, we can see these 9 competencies. So we bought their IP. We bought that IP and said, based upon each level of leadership you are in the company, here's your expected proficiency against those 9 competencies. And from there, along that foundation, we also centrally uploaded, for the first time in our history, a people leader goal. I don't care what function you're in, where you sit in the world, leadership is leadership, and here is what General Motors expects of you. And so that's the foundational element. We had been doing people leader feedback, so 180 type of surveys, but what it didn't do is it didn't connect back to anything. So we reframed the surveys so that those questions mapped to the competencies. Again, direct correlation. And then from an engagement standpoint, like many of you all, we've been measuring engagement since 2012 at GM. But in the last couple of years, what we really found through our data is we could directly show a leader's effectiveness on an individual's engagement. When you have an effective leader that is engaged, your multiplier effect is about 1.3 on that individual. So you're sitting there talking about the topic of ROI, and you go, okay, there's a nugget to crack there. In line with the strategic priority that we'd set out as a company of best-in-class engagement by 2024, we knew that we had a nugget to crack. So then, how does that all apply to learning? Honestly, that becomes our so what and our for what. We made some few changes in the learning space, and we call it multifaceted development. What we did is for all of our new managers, we pulled them in to a 6-month immersive learning course that was, thank you Degreed, had some course content. They went on a 6-month journey, and really it is, again, global. Again, I don't care where you are, I don't care what function you're in, your hours, congratulations on your promotion, we're putting you through this learning. We also then took some different bite-sized approaches on going through COVID. How do we get course content out that helps you think about the topic of empathy, helps you think about the topic of DE&I, and that micro-learning, again, very less event and static based. And what we also did is, using all of that data that we've got, we found a way to zone in on managers that maybe just need a little bit more help than others. So instead of a blanket approach, like everyone goes through all of these courses, so-and-so might be struggling in the topic of feedback. Get them, grab that module, and then their learning has got that so what and for what tied to it. So all in all, I just talked about a lot there, but for me, again, it's that word, it's that connected ecosystem. And as you'll see there, none of that could come out of just a learning organization alone. So if you're a CLO out there and you're looking to go on this similar kind of journey, the one key thing I will say is you can't do it as a CLO alone. You have to work with many of the other facets in your talent organization, whether you own them or not. So when I look to the future state, a couple of thoughts, again, just to leave you with before I get to the main topic in hand. And we're challenging ourselves with these questions. As talent development and learning teams, we can be anything, but we cannot be everything. So are the things that we're developing and what we're working on tied to the purpose and the strategy of the company? Is it the highest, best use of our resources? Is it totally connected to an ecosystem? Does it tie back to engagement, feedback, foundational competencies? And when you think about how you learn, when I need to know something, what do we typically do? You Google it. In the moment, I don't wait for it to be my Friday learning day. And so when we think about that topic of learning, how do we truly make it in the flow of work? Again, thank you, Degreed, because that really helps us. I have my Degreed app on my phone. And so how do we put that into the flow of someone's work? And then how do you think about your talent? Are they company first and function second? Or they function first and company second? Because that's a very key distinction as you think about, do you want your talent to join your company and have very broad careers? So just a couple of thoughts there. But to the question in hand, and then I'll wrap it up, Colin, and the final slide. When we think about that future, and I'm sure there are many tangential thoughts going around your minds. So all of that, do course completions need to become extinct, or do they need to go into hiding? And my perspective is neither. Course completions can exist as a perfect piece of your overall animal kingdom. And for me, that's important, particularly for us as business owners. And I give you an analogy to like a plant manager. Yep, a plant manager knows customer survey, how the overall quality is and their impact on EBIT. But they also know their direct run rate. They also know their headcount that comes through the walls, their absenteeism. We, like the plant managers, are business unit owners. So not only do we have to know about those course completions from an efficiency and an effectiveness standpoint, because we're running a business, does it have to go into the front piece of our narrative when we're talking outwards? Absolutely not. but it is a key data point that we need to have in our back pocket. So again, just to sum up, for me, course completions absolutely don't need to be extinct. They don't need to act like the chameleon. They can be a part of our integrated ecosystem. For us, we are business unit leaders. When we talk outwards, that's where you focus on impact, moving the needle, culture, purpose, and strategy. But again, that's all got to exist within the overall animal kingdom ecosystem. All right, back to you, Colin.
So, Mark, I want to hear your piece. But first, as we're listening just actively and critically, it'll be interesting to see this other perspective, right? And so listen, there'll be a different approach that Mark takes, but listen, I think, for themes that align, and then we'll have another chance to engage in questions, and then we'll do an activity toward the end before we wrap up. So I'm curious to hear how you guys might connect the themes between the two different presentations here. So with that, Mark.
Yeah, thanks. So we can just go to the next slide. Just a little bit about Raytheon Technologies, maybe not a household name. I've been at Raytheon Technologies about 18 months. I joined from Boeing, and I joined the company as Raytheon and United Technologies were merging. So they'd been about 30 days old when I joined the company, and so it was really getting through, an understanding of, what does each company have from a learning and development perspective, where are we trying to go, and then just a lot of tasks, right? Merger activities, harmonizing policies, harmonizing systems, and things like that. So that's kind of where we've been. If you go to the slide there, just RTX in general, we're about 181,000 employees around the world, 300 plus sites, mostly make engines, landing gears, aerostructures, lavatories, interiors, missiles, satellites, cybersecurity, a whole realm of jet. Did I say jet engines? Probably. But that's the company. It's an heavy aerospace and defense company, and getting these two halves of the business. One has predominantly been very commercial. One has been predominantly very Department of Defense, and trying to find, on a commercial business, you can be very lean and agile and move quickly. Where on a Department of Defense, you've got a lot of regulations and things that you have to follow, and you're delivering to a very specific specification. So it's been a unique environment as we're coming into this. And so some of the things I'm going to talk about are a little bit from my previous experience at Boeing and GE, and also kind of where I think we have opportunity moving forward. So just to give, and actually my old team is here too. So I've got my new team and my old team here. So we'll probably do a little bit of a, showdown here in the lobby later on tonight. So if you think about completions versus consumption, completions are when you have cleaned the plate, you've gone through everything, you've ticked every box, you've finished it at the end, and when you're done, you've got the clean plate. I mean, my mom always used to tell me, you got to clean your plate. But if you think about it, if I only ate half of my sandwich, or I only had a bite or two, I still got something out of it. And maybe I'm not hungry. Maybe I had something else a little bit earlier. But it doesn't mean that it doesn't have value. So how do we, other than the end game, right, the completion, truly understand what's going on? And I think completion really comes from a pre-digital age where you had an event-based activity. It was live in the classroom. All kinds of learning went on, but we didn't really capture it in any meaningful way. There may have been some assessments, and so you've got some test grades at the end, if you will, or even throughout the class. But ultimately, you had to put something in a system as a record, and that's where the learning management system came about. But we're in a heavily digital age, and we talk about, I've heard many people talk about digital first as they've been up here on the stage. Well, in a digital first world, you can capture so much more information. And one of the things you can do is think about how many times, if you're taking an online program that's self-paced, how many times you click throughout that entire course. So one of the things we did at my previous company is we looked at what what is that journey of a user. And so how you learn matters. And so we did a program with MIT. We sent about 1,300 engineers through it around systems engineering, and we recorded every single clickstream event that occurred in that class. 1,300 students generated about 3 million rows of data based on their consumption in that class. And from that, we could see very elegant paths through the course content, and we could see very inelegant paths. Is just probably the hot messes, if you will, where people maybe they didn't have the prerequisite knowledge, and so they had to go back and loop through content over and over. On the left-hand side, I think it's left, yeah, for you guys, left-hand side is more of that elegant student. They went through the course within the time expectation that there was there, and they didn't have a lot of revisiting content and jumping around and having to go back to other modules. And you can see the user on the right is a much more haphazard approach through the content. Each dot on that is a content object in there. And so you can see that this person, they struggled to pass. I think they got this was about a C, if you will, just average completion. The one on the left is an A. This is what it looks like when you start to plot out. And this is when you think about, we talk about stories of the data, right? Nancy's going to talk a little bit later here. I mean, the data tells the story. The visualization of this data through this course shows you two completely different outcomes. But historically, we would just say both completed, right? But the value you see here, you can see that there is definitely a different level of understanding of the content throughout the journey. If you go to the next slide, it's a different visualization. The top half is moving forward through the content. The bottom half is moving backwards through the content. And then the size of the dot is how long they were in that content module from a duration perspective. Again, you can see there are some paths. It's not linear. And we design these online programs typically to be linear. You're going to go through this, you're going to take slide 1, slide 2, slide 3, and then at the end you take the test. But we see that's not how people consume it. And so I think there's a huge opportunity in the Degreed platform. Right now, when you click on it, you go out, you take that class somewhere else, they get all the data, or they ignore all the data, and then they send back a completion to Degreed. If we can see how people are proceeding through these programs, one, we can build better programs because we better understand how people flow through this content. And then two, it can actually even help us with course content quality. You can see that they kept going back and pausing at a video at a certain time stamp. Oh, there was a table of data in that video that somebody needed later on in the program. Then you can make that as a job aid that you can give to people, right? So it can help you even deconstruct your programs to make them more efficient. So for me, it's more how you learn matters as much or more than did you get what you supposed to, did you check the box at the end of the journey. So those are my thought process around, in a digital age, we have actually just barely scratched the surface on truly understanding how people learn. And if you think about, this was a contained course, right? It had a beginning and an end. It was cohort based. But if you think about, that was only 1,300 students. There's classes out there that we take that tens of thousands of students at our companies can go through, and that may be in a year. And you take it over several years, you can really start to get this rich understanding of more than just, did they do it or not? So, and this could even be a signal to level of proficiency, right? We think about the proficiency of skills. Maybe that previous slide had the one on the left, because of the signal and the path that we go through, we'll have to do some more research to understand, may have a higher level of proficiency gained versus the lower level. And this would be another skill signal that is not just my self-assessment and my peer assessment, but also how I flow through the content.
That's fabulous. Yes, love that.